What's cracking? Welcome back to the HQ. It's your boy Nicholas. Big Dogs Gotta Eat Fantasy Football. Man, I feel like we waited for like 17 years for the NFL draft to come. I don't know if this year definitely had way more buzz than any year, as long as I can remember. It was a fun one. We just wrapped up the first round, so I want to go over all the skill positions that were picked. And I want to say thank you, anyone. Yo, the live stream last night was lit. That was mad fun. Shout out anyone that joined for the live stream last night. It's actually uploaded back onto YouTube on my channel as its own video, so if you want to rewatch that, we live streamed for like 3 to 4 hours last night, the entire draft. Thank y'all for those of you who stuck with me. YouTube told me there was over 1,600 people that came into the live stream, so that's crazy. Love y'all for doing that. I always do for you guys that are new to the channel. I do live streams every Sunday morning prior to kickoff, so like 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm also working on some kind of package that I'm going to put on my Patreon page, which is not up yet, that will give you guys access to private live streams if you want to donate to the channel. Not yet up. Stay tuned, like some Sirius XM for that, but we want to get into the video. We want to recap the first round, all the skill players that were picked, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight ends, and what their fantasy impact is going to look like for the 28 fantasy football season. Again, you know, I'm competing with these mainstream video guys who are coming into YouTube, so I need all the love I can get, baby. Let's get this party started. All right. We're going to go from round 1, pick 1, all the way down to pick 32, hitting the skill players. And, of course, we're going to start off with the number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield. I got all my notes here, so when I'm not looking at you, I'm just diagnosing what I got here. I want to start by saying, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm excited about this pick. I think the comparisons to Johnny Manziel are just super lazy. I think Baker Mayfield's a way better thrower, more accurate passer. I really do like this pick a lot. And, you know, he's just a natural-born leader. He's someone with a chip on his shoulder. Obviously, he had to walk on to 2 separate college teams, made his way to be a Heisman winner, first pick in the NFL draft, and now he's going to lead the Cleveland Browns. This team is going to be dripping swagoo. Mad finesse coming out of the gates, man, with this team in Cleveland, with all the additions they got in this season. So, I want you to listen to some of these numbers. Per Pro Football Focus, 80.6% adjusted completion percentage, 64.4% adjusted deep ball completion percentage last year, led the entire country, led all quarterbacks in college football, led the country in quarterback rating under pressure in 2015, in 2016, and in 2017. Baker Mayfield is a legit quarterback. The knock on him is, besides the off-field issues, let me close the window right quick. Somebody got to be cutting the damn lawn. It's raining out. Why are you cutting your grass? Y'all crazy as hell. Hopefully you guys can't hear that buzz. Anyways, yeah, so the knock on him, besides his off-the-field issues, which I think he'll hopefully have under wraps, I'm not going to talk about that for fantasy relevance, is his size, right? He's about 6'1", 215. And I think at this point we can kind of offset the size argument that's not like a giant factor in whether or not you're going to succeed. He's bigger than Russell Wilson. He's about the same size, if not a little bigger than Drew Brees. So I'm not holding that against him. Per Graham Barfield, and you're going to hear this name, Graham Barfield, many times throughout this article, and I'll tell you why later. Graham Barfield is a fantasy analyst from fantasyguru.com. Highly suggest you go follow him on Twitter. Last season, 94% of all pass attempts in the NFL traveled between 0 and 19 yards downfield. Okay? You don't need to be Josh Allen to be successful. You don't need to throw the ball deep all the time. 94% of passes were 19 yards or less. Quarterbacks that are accurate, short, and mid throwing the ball are the ones that normally succeed. Yeah, you want to be an accurate quarterback throwing the ball deep, but he led the NFL, the college football in adjusted completion percentage on deep passes. So Baker Mayfield can do it all. That being said, this is a fantasy football channel, so we are going to try to, oh yes, hell yeah. So we're going to try to stick to that from here on out. They signed Tyrod to the 1-year deal. So for the time being, I assume that Tyrod is their starting quarterback. They mentioned it throughout the spring already that that he's their guy. I don't expect Baker Mayfield. I expect him to compete for the starting job. I don't expect them to throw him in if they don't feel. There's no way they're gonna rush this kid, right? They think he's the future, the franchise of the quarterback of their franchise's future, right? So there's no way they rush him. If they have even 1% doubt that he's not ready to start, they're not going to rush him. They're going to let Tyrod play, which is, I think, how it happens. Would I bet money that he plays multiple games this year? Yeah, I would. I think he does get some starts eventually. Where can I see that happening? I was looking at their schedule. They have their bye week in week 11. Prior to their bye week, they play at Pitt, then against Kansas City, then against Atlanta. Those are 3 tough games. So if they go on a slide, right, and this is going to depend on how Tyrod's playing, obviously, in the record, but if they go on a 3-game slide there, have the bye week, I could totally see them being like, all right, Baker, it's your time to roll. We're not doing well. Show us what you got. They have that whole bye week. They come off the bye week playing Cincinnati. It could be a good spot for Baker to get in there. You have to love the weapons there between Flash, Corey Coleman, Njoku, Jarvis Landry, Duke Johnson, Carlos Hyde. It's just a really good setup for him, and I think they're preparing for him to really take this franchise to the next level. I would be very happy if I'm a Browns fan. He is my dynasty quarterback 1 right now, but I'm staying away from him in redraft league just because he's definitely not going to be getting starts. I don't have to really explain this. All right, number 2. Here's a big boy. Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State, goes to the Giants at number 2. A lot of scrutiny here. Again, I'm not going to go into the value of running backs at the position. This is fantasy football related. You see the measurables. You see the metrics. The kid has everything just tested off the charts in just about every category you possibly could. That's the easy, the known stuff that you're going to get. You come to my channel because I'm going to give you the breakdown of shit that you don't get elsewhere. Where do I start? Jesus. Let's talk about his fit as an actual Giant. Got a lot of questions. Does this mean he's a top 10 pick? In my eyes, absolutely. He is a no-brainer to get 300 touches in 2018. Health abiding. As long as he's healthy, I see no way he doesn't get 300 touches on the season, which is less than, 18 touches a game? Yeah, 18 touches a game. There's no way he doesn't get that as long as he's healthy. I still have no idea why they brought in Jonathan Stewart, talking about depth, but regardless if they didn't take Saquon Barkley there. But nevertheless, they have Jay Stu, they have Wayne Gallman, they have Paul Perkins there. Shane Vereen and Orleans Darkwa are gone via free agency. The Giants had a total team carry count of 394 last year, which was among the lowest in the entire NFL. So not a ton of volume there, but that can largely be attributed to them just trailing most of the time, right? They had a bad record. They were a bad team. They didn't really have a lot of opportunities to run the ball like most teams do who are more successful. So, we obviously have to take a look at the offensive line because it's a big weak point for the G-Men, a really weak spot for them, and they took a ton of scrutiny for it last year, and they weren't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they did deal with a lot of injuries. They had 9 different starters for them throughout the year. They surprised me when I was checking them out on Football Outsiders, were the 15th ranked run blocking line and the 10th ranked pass blocking line, 10th best. So that was kind of shocking to me, and I wanted to look at other sites just because you can't just go off one subjective website, Football Outsiders. I looked at PFF, and they were ranked 26th overall, worse in pass blocking by them, but they were middle of the pack in terms of yards before contact for running backs. So in terms of like where they got contacted, they were middle of the pack, so not like the worst. They lost Justin Pugh in free agency, but they did go out and sign the Pats' former left tackle, Nate Solder. Huge deal. 4 years, $62 million. I'm not going to say it's an absolute wash, but, I don't know. They lose Pugh, they get Solder, and I don't think it's, as long as they can stay healthy. I mean, that means Eric Flowers doesn't have to play left tackle anymore, thank God. If you're a Giants fan, you couldn't be more excited to hear that. So I think, when it comes to a bad lineman for fantasy purposes, usually bad lines can absolutely be outplayed or outmaneuver for fantasy success if you, 1, have a decent offense that moves the ball, or 2, get crazy volume. And I think that is going to be the case for both points. I think this team just has too much, good, juicy personnel on offense between Odell, between Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, and now Saquon. We don't even know where Dez is yet. I don't love that. That's a whole other video story. But, a lot of weapons there, so I do expect, they averaged 15.4 points per game last year. That's like Cleveland Brown-esque. I'm sorry, Cleveland, for shitting on you. Actually, Cleveland was the only team that averaged less points per game than them last year. So I expect their offense, not a huge jump, but definitely not going to be 31st in the league in terms of scoring. And Barkley is almost guaranteed. You're going to pick someone second overall, you're giving him 20 to 25 touches a game. So volume offsets a bad offensive line 10 out of 10 times for me. What else we look at is coaching changes. They bring in Pat Shurmur as the head coach. They bring in Mike Shula as the offensive coordinator. Shurmur as their head coach has bounced around a lot in this league. We have to we have to take what statistics and what numbers we could look at. Last year, he was the offensive coordinator for Minnesota. Their MO was the ground game. 31.3 rushes a game. Only Jacksonville ran the ball more and on a higher percentage of plays than Minnesota. You look at he's still with Pat Shurmur. He was the OC in Philly from 2013 to 2015. They ranked number 1 in rushing attempts, number 11 and number 9 and number 11 in those 3 years. So you see what he wants to do. And you look at Mike Shula. He's a former quarterback coach, but he was the OC for the Panthers for the last 5 seasons. And over that span, I know this is a very different situation given that he didn't have a lot of good personnel and Cam Newton is their quarterback as a mobile quarterback, but they were amongst the run heaviest teams in the NFL over the last half decade under Shula. So you combine two guys who their game plan is always to dominate on the ground, and this bodes well for Barkley's volume. Not that really had any questions there. Now I wanted to look at scoring opportunities. Again, the points per game is very low, but I wanted to look at opportunities near the goal line. Last year, their running backs plus Eli Manning had 12 carries inside the 5-yard line, so 12 goal line rushes, 24 carries inside the 10-yard line, and 50 red zone carries. Definitely not crazy, nothing crazy to get excited about. 12 overall carries inside the 5-yard line, but Barkley should see like 90% of red zone inside the 10, 5-yard line carries. So I'm not really worried about his rushing upside. I think his rushing touchdown floor is probably like 7. I mean, given the fact that he can break out for a 60-yard touchdown at any point, he doesn't need to rely on goal line rushes. He's that type of player. So what I'm hoping is that they use this kid correctly, man. They need to use him on pass. That's like his most valuable asset to the NFL nowadays is his ability to, move with the ball in his hands and catch passes. He is such a good pass catcher, and he's an amazing pass blocker as well. He graded out first overall in pass blocking, so that's a huge upgrade for the Giants there because obviously they need the help in blocking. But if they can utilize him on first and second downs in the passing game when defenses are playing a little more cushion and get him the ball in space rather than just forcing it to him on third downs only, that's what they need to do if they want him to really excel and use him to the second round draft capital that they picked him at. So, if you're with me and that you think Saquon touches the rock 300 times next year, listen to this. There were 6 running backs in 2017 that touched the ball 300 plus times. Bell, Gurley, Shady, Gordon, Hunt, Fournette. They finished as RB1, RB2, RB4, RB5, RB7, RB8 in fantasy. If he's getting that volume, he is finishing really, really high in fantasy. And again, I'm doing a video once the draft is over. I'm going to do a video of my top 12 overall rookies for fantasy football, not just like a breakdown of all skill positions. I'll probably get more in depth in terms of like where I would draft them and their ADP and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that video, which I'm not going to do a video for every round doing like this because that's just out of control. He's your easy 101 in Dynasty Leagues this year. And for me, I'll be debating him between picks probably 5 and 8 this year in drafts. And I think him versus David Johnson is a very realistic argument to have. He'll be in arguments against Kareem Hunt for sure. Leonard Fournette, I would probably take him above both of those guys, and then I'll have to decide on him versus David Johnson. Sorry, that was a lot on Barkley. Anyways, Sam Darnold. Quarterback goes to the Jets. I love this. If I'm a Jets fan, I think Darnold is a great future quarterback for the Jets as a real football player. And he was probably my favorite quarterback prospect overall as a pure passer. But they have Josh McCown there. There's no guarantee that they rush Darnold into that starting job. For fantasy purposes, he's pretty much off my redraft board, and I think he'd probably be QB 3. Probably QB 3. I'll go more in depth once I cover all the quarterbacks on that in Dynasty. Josh Allen, QB number 3 off the board, goes to the Bills at pick 7. They were at pick 12. They traded up to pick 7 in exchange for that 12th pick both of their second-round picks, and they got like the 255th pick, I think, back in the trade. So they gave up a lot to move up 5 spots to get Josh Allen. Bro, like imagine Josh Allen went to Wyoming. Like imagine, first of all, imagine living in Wyoming. Now you're like this hyped up NFL prospect, like life's about to be so good. Like all the teams that need quarterbacks live in dope cities, right? You got New York, both the Jets and the Giants. You got Denver, you got Arizona's even kind of cool. And he goes to Buffalo. Wyoming to Buffalo. Like, goddamn. I'm so sorry, Josh Allen. I feel like we're going to see when man Noah, who was in the live stream last night, goes, we're going to see Josh Allen on Barstool next October, fucking flipping through tables, man. Joining Bill's Mafia in the crowd. I'd love to see that. That'd be epic. But Allen goes to a situation, and also touching on Darnold, they don't have a lot of weapons there. They don't have a lot of firepower on offense. It's just not a good look for redraft leagues this year. Allen's the same thing. They don't have a lot of weapons in Buffalo. It's like Kelvin Benjamin. I think Josh Allen might be a better wide receiver than Kelvin Benjamin is, to be honest with you. But they have Benjamin, Charles Clay, Zay Jones. They lost 3 of their offensive linemen, Eric Wood, Richie Incognito, Cordy Glenn via trade. It's just not a good situation. Obviously, they brought in A.J. McCarron. I absolutely expect this to be a straight-up quarterback battle. I don't think that I think they'll willingly put Josh Allen in if they think he's ready at the beginning of the season. I don't think they have any qualms with starting him right away. But, you know Allen, man. He's a big guy, 6'5", like 225, huge arm quarterback. But like I said before, 94% of passes were 0 to 19 yards. You don't need to use that very often. And you look at their weapons. It's not like Zay Jones or Kelvin Benjamin like excel down the field. So it's not, I wouldn't see that being put to use very often for Allen this year. You know, he's a high upside pick. The accuracy is definitely a concern, but he's got really good athleticism, so there's upside there. I mean, I've heard comparisons anywhere from fucking Brock Osweiler to Carson Wentz. So I'm not even going to sit here and be like, oh, I think he's going to be a bust. So we'll just let time tell you that. I'm staying away from him in redraft leagues for sure. I think he's probably my QB 4 in Dynasty. And we'll move to not one last quarterback, but almost the last quarterback. Because the Ravens did a little bit of scheming and plotting there. Sorry, I'm hungry. I've been doing an all-vegan diet. For those of you on my live stream, I woke up. My stomach was killing me from eating all those Doritos. I had like 3/4 of a bag of the spicy sweet chili Doritos. That shit hurt. But they're vegan. I've been on a vegan diet since Monday. I'm doing it for 7 days through Sunday. Kind of sucks. It's not the worst. I don't hate the food, but like when I want a snack, I'm like, oh, sick. I have to eat like meatless meatballs. Anyways, I don't want to hear about that shit. Josh Rosen goes to Arizona. They move up. Long term, I like this move a lot. Rosen's as pro-ready as any quarterback in the draft. Coming out of UCLA, they ran a pro-style offense. He was constantly making like anticipation throws and play action and this stuff. So he's ready to roll. They probably won't use him this year, though. Obviously, they signed Sam Bradford there, and ideally, they would definitely like to sit Rosen for a year, let him learn behind Sam Bradford. Might not be the case, because as we know, Bradford might have got hurt last night, for all we know. They have a really bad offensive line, so there's a good chance that Bradford gets hit a lot. There's a good chance he gets hurt at one point of the season, and Rosen does go in. They don't really have much in terms of weapons, outside of just throwing the ball short to Fitz or David Johnson. So it's not a great situation right now. I think Rosen is a very good dynasty option, though, and I think he'll develop into a really nice quarterback. I know I've been saying that for all the quarterbacks, but this is one of the years that I actually liked all the quarterbacks going up top. I don't really love Allen, but from a prospect standpoint, I like Rosen. Let me check where this time is at right now. All right, we got like 10 minutes left. All right, and then from picks 11 through... I asked my friend who's a Giants fan. I know he wanted Darnold really bad, and he said he was going to go nuts if Barkley was picked. So I asked him for a quote about Barkley being picked by the Giants, and this is what he gave me, the bottom one. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm not going to say that out loud because YouTube's going to pick up on that shit and not let me get any advertising money, any monies. Okay, so speaking of monies and your boy profiting, as you may or may not know, my pre-order for my draft guide, my Ultimate Fantasy Football Draft Guide for your draft is available on my website, which I will link here as well as will be all over the description. Get it now for a discounted price. July 1st, the prices will go up. It will include all my dynasty rankings, so if you're intrigued by my rookie breakdowns, those will be in there, and there'll be so much more in there too. So go check that out. Pre-order now. Prices will go up July 1st. You done heard it here first. So between picks 11 and 23, there were no more skill players. The next guy off the board, DJ Moore, wide receiver out of Maryland. This was an obvious pick, I think. The Panthers desperately needed another wide receiver. After kind of busting on Curtis Samuel, they have Devin Funchess, who's probably better off as a wide receiver too. I want to first talk about Steve Smith, was commentating the draft last night. I forget on what channel, probably ESPN. He loves this guy. Relatively speaking, Steve Smith had Cooper Kupp as his wide receiver 1 last year. Good call by him. He loves DJ Moore. Quote unquote, he said, unquote, I think I just paraphrased, but they've been searching, since I left, they've been searching for a wide receiver to replace me, and they just got him. Talking about DJ Moore. You know what's hilarious though? You guys got to follow Old Takes Exposed, or Freezing Cold Takes, whatever, on Twitter and Instagram. It's hilarious. They just go back and find like analysts who say dumbass shit, and like 3 years later they like call them out on it. And that was the only thing that ran through my mind as soon as Steve Smith said that. It's like, Carolina's been searching for the next me, and they just got him. And I was like, boom, freeze frame. That's going to be on Old Takes Exposed in 3 years. And now every time an analyst says like a hard take, I immediately am like, damn, he's so fucked. They're going to finish him 2 years down the road. Anyways, back to DJ Moore. You look at his profile. There's a ton of comparables you can throw out. There's Pierre Garçon. We're hearing a lot of Stephon Diggs, and it's because they both came from Maryland. And I think that's a very good comparison. I think Pierre Garçon's a really good comparison. I think Golden Tate is a great comparison. He measured really, really, really well at the combine. The thing about him compared to Stephon Diggs is he's bigger than Stephon Diggs. 6 foot, 210. He's almost built like a running back. 4'4", 240. 89th percentile, 88th percentile weighted adjusted speed score, burst, agility, catch radius, all really good. Spark score, crazy off the charts. When you look at Moore as an actual NFL player, here's what I say. He runs good routes, not great routes, but good routes. Sometimes he has trouble getting separation from the cornerbacks. Really good hands, really good yak, really good moving after the catch. He'll need good hands because Cam Newton ain't exactly the best at delivering accurate passes. He was Big Ten Wide Receiver of the Year last year, 80 catches, 1,033 yards, 8 touchdowns, despite having 4 different quarterbacks he played with last year. That's crazy. 53.3% of Maryland's total receiving yards and touchdowns in his time at Maryland. That is 97th percentile in terms of gathering that entire market of your team's yards and touchdowns. So he's super productive at Maryland. The problem I see is, I think at least for the first year, possibly 2 years, is Moore's going to be a better real-life player than a fantasy player because, you know, there is opportunity there, but they brought in Torrey Smith. They brought in Jarius Wright. They'll be getting Curtis Samuel back. I feel bad for Curtis Samuel, man. He went way too high in the draft last year, and now they, like, basically can't even use him between McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Jarius Wright. So Jarius Wright's going to be the slot. That leaves, like, DJ Moore. DJ Moore's a guy who can play slot. He can play outside. And I think they're going to be splitting time. While Devin Funchess is the outside guy who's a staple, I think they're going to be splitting time. Like Torrey Smith, DJ Moore are going to be swapping in and out, and I think Moore will be coming into the slot and stuff, but I don't think he's going to be a full-time receiver. At least not for like the first half of the season. Maybe he will develop into it and then become a better player on the outside. But, you know, you have all these weapons that they brought in, and you already have C-Mac and Greg Olsen who are commanding a lot of targets, and on top of that, the Panthers have been one of the most, like I talked about before, under Shula, they've been one of the most run-heavy, pass-resistant teams over the last half-decade. So it's not like there's a ton of targets there available to him. There's other competition. They don't pass the ball that often for him to be like, get enough volume to be a really relevant fantasy player. Norv Turner is their new offensive coordinator. So I went back and I tried to gather whatever stats I could that might be relevant to this. The only thing I could find was he was the OC in Minnesota from 2014 to 2016. And in 2016, they lined up in 3+ wide receivers or more sets about 63% of their plays, which means Moore will be on the field for those percentage of the plays. That's middle of the pack, maybe a little bit lower than NFL average, so it's not necessarily great for Moore's outlook but I'm just trying to give you a realistic standpoint. Great dynasty pick for sure. I really like him in dynasty, but in redrafts, I'm probably going to pump the brakes and be a little farther off him than some people might be. And then we had a trade. Martavis Bryant traded to Oakland for a third-round pick. This was pretty interesting in the middle of the draft. What I'll say is, I think it was a great move. I mean, it was a good move for both sides. You're not, like, 95 to 98% chances you're not getting the talent or a guy who can produce like Martavis Bryant, a wide receiver, in the third round with that pick. So I think it's great that teams are trading picks for actual proven players. The change of scenery definitely can't hurt. He's still super young, 26 years old. It's a really interesting dynamic. Now they have John Gruden as the head coach. He joins Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson in that receiving core. And I'm not really sure how this is going to work out because Derek Carr took a big step back last year. And I feel like Bryant's going to be the third most targeted guy in a okay passing offense. Gruden was never eccentric about the passing offense. He never pushed the ball down the field much. He was more of a defensive guy, especially when he won the Super Bowl. I'm excited to see what happens. This might end up being a fantasy wide receiver trio that I completely fade based on, we'll see where their ADPs land. But what's intriguing to me is whoever ends up in the slot. Because Bryant's definitely going to be playing on the outside. And I'm not sure if they're going to put Jordy or Cooper in the slot. I think whoever is the one that ends up in the slot is the guy that I would think about taking in fantasy. Cooper, I think, will just get a ton of targets, and he'll be much better getting targets that are closer to him, and he moves well when the balls are in his hands. Jordy Nelson's obviously older, and he's having more trouble separating from outside defenders, so him in the slot would make sense too. I'm not really sure where they're going to go, but if I had to choose one, it'd be one of them. What do you guys think of this situation? Leave a comment down below, like, overall, I don't know, how you think it's going to pan out? Who do you want in fantasy? Like, how do you see this working out? So drop a comment down below for me in that. Okay, moving down the list. The first tight end, the first and only tight end of the first round, Hayden Hurst, tight end from South Carolina, goes to the Baltimore Ravens. I fucking hate this pick for them. I really do. They had a need there at tight end, so I understand the pick. I just think it was a bad one. Especially, fantasy football for sure. You look at his measurable, he has good speed, but he's not like not an incredible athlete. He was a baseball player. He was a pitcher for the Pirates or something. I don't know. He was a pitcher for a while, but he's 25 years old. He's an old prospect, and, don't get me wrong, he'll probably be the starting tight end, or he'll be the tight end that catches the most passes next year. But had this been last year going into the 2017 season, I'd be like, cool, there's so much opportunity available to him. I would have been higher on him, but now they bring in Crabtree, they bring in John Brown, they bring in Willie Snead, and Joe Flacco just sucks. So it's not like I see a lot of opportunity for him overall to make a fantasy impact. And the fact that rookie tight ends are just not good fantasy players. It's just historically proven. Might be good players, but outside of like breakouts like Evan Ingram, you don't see that often whatsoever, and I do not put it on this guy to be a breakout player. So we'll just keep moving on. I think we have 4 or 5 players left. Yes, okay, so we got my boys, my dirty birds with the 26th pick. God damn it, I wanted Mo Hurst. I wanted Maurice Hurst really bad. We need D tackles, but he's still on the board, so maybe we can grab him. The Falcons take Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama, to pair him with their other wide receiver out of Alabama, Julio Jones. I wonder if any of you guys were live streaming with me last night, I wonder if you got a screenshot of my reaction when they picked Ridley. I was devastated, so if you do, let me know, please. But the more I think about the pick, the more I actually like it, to be honest. And I was like, I really don't want to invest more into this offense because we have a lot of good pieces. But thinking about it, I do really like to have another explosive playmaker like Calvin Ridley opposite Julio Jones. He's not a big target, but he's very fast. He's very good at creating separation and running routes. He tested really poorly at the combine, like really, really, really bad. Not a good athlete by metrics. And I think that dropped him down the board pretty far. Had he had a good combine, I think he would have been a top 15, probably a top 10 pick, but he didn't, so he dropped. And like I said, great route runner, great at separation, a really good deep threat, and really good with the ball in his hand. So it's Yak. The Yak is gorgeous for your boy Calvin Ridley. So, they lost Taylor Gabriel. There's not a ton of opportunity in terms of targets. I think Taylor Gabriel had like 50 or 55 targets last year. I think they're going to move Mohamed Sanu into the slot, have Ridley and Julio on the outside, and I think the opportunity for Ridley will come from Gabriel's targets, and will also come from pulling away some of Sanu's targets. So Sanu actually averaged, I was surprised when I saw it, 6.4 targets a game last year, which is a pretty hefty amount for someone in this offense. So if Ridley can take a piece of that, he can take Gabriel's targets. I see him probably settling between 75 and 90 targets. I think he's more of like a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 in redraft leagues. In terms of dynasty, from DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley were the only 2 receivers off the board. Ridley would be my wide receiver 1 in dynasty so far. So that's Ridley, and now is where things get interesting. Now is when we get to the running backs and then Lamar Jackson. We have Rashad Penny out of San Diego State, number 27 overall pick to the Seattle Seahawks. Before we get into that, I want to plug the sponsor of today's video, FantasyJocks.com. They are the leader in fantasy football merchandise for your league. I'm talking about championship belts. I'm talking about championship rings. I'm talking about championship trophies, draft boards. If you guys do a live draft, they have awesome kits where it gives you the boards, all the player stickers, markers, koozies for your league mates, all this cool stuff. A great package. And these things, this is such high quality stuff. So what I suggest you do, make your fantasy league, the league is always better when there's more on the line. If you guys do a buy-in, just have everyone chip in an extra $10. If it's 50, say give me $62. Grab yourself a belt that you could pass from winner to winner each year. Grab yourself a ring for like 40 or 50 bucks each year. And this is permanent. This is for life. It's like getting branded. You get branded with the belt, man. These are awesome. And I highly suggest any... Oh, shit, I'm stuck. I highly suggest anyone grab one of these belts. They're awesome. If you want to check them out, obviously the link is down below. It's FantasyJocks.com. Thank you again for sponsoring this video. Let's get it on. Whatever. Y'all get the point. Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny to the Seahawks. Huge surprise pick here to Seattle. He was going off. Vegas odds had Penny 50-1 to be the second running back off the board. So if someone took that, man, good for y'all. Good for y'all. You made some crispy dollar bills. I want to take a second moment of silence. Rest in peace to my boy Chris Carson, the God. The amount of disrespect by taking Rashad Penny when they have Chris Carson there really lights a fire under me. I get why they did it, man. The Seahawks have just been burned over and over again by running backs. They've had no one that can stay healthy. As talented as you are not useful if you can't stay healthy. And Carson shredded up his leg last year. They like Rashad Penny. They've seen he can handle a big workload, and they think he is their guy. They've been looking for their Marshawn Lynch since he left. They got trust issues, and they thought it was Rashad Penny, so they capitalized. I think they had a lot of other needs that they could have went after instead of a running back, but we shall see how it plays out. And, Penny is one of the guys in this draft that is looked at by NFL scouts as a true featured back that can do it all and play on all 3 downs. A lot of people that I follow, that I respect their opinions of, had Rashad Penny as their RB2 in this class, outright, right after Barkley. You look at his measurables. He has the size, and he definitely has the speed. 5'11", 220. That is the build of running back that you like to see. 22 years old, 4'4", 640. That is 92nd percentile, weight-adjusted, speed, score. He didn't test everything, so they don't have great numbers in terms of burst and spark and stuff like that. But he really can do it all. Outside of just the size and the speed, really good burst, agility, vision, balance, all these things. He keeps his feet moving. The knock on him is that he played at SDSU, San Diego State University. You're not going to have good competition there. You are not going to have like NFL caliber defense as you would playing in the SEC or something. So what you would expect him to do is absolutely dominate those teams that he plays against. And it's exactly what he did. He led college football last year with 2,248 rushing yards. He scored 25 touchdowns. He is also an incredible kick returner. He returned 2 for touchdowns last year and a punt return. He had 7 touchdown returns over the entire year. His breakaway speed is very, very, very relevant. So he is someone that has all these different types of traits that are really, really useful. 7.8 yards per carry last year for the Aztecs, a really high number. So he did dominate that lesser competition, which you would have to expect for a first-round pick. I want to bring up some outside sources now while we're diving into these running backs. You look at a tweet from Scott Barrett of Pro Football Focus, who I definitely suggest that you follow on Twitter. So he had the lesser competition, but you look at his numbers versus Power 5 schools, so the big conferences. 7.78 yards per carry. That is good. That is good. The competition is one thing you could say, but he still performed against good and better competition. He showed potential as a receiver. This is all per Scott Barrett. Yards per route run. He led all combine invite running backs in that category. So, just proving again, he has that aspect to his game. He was not good as a pass blocker. That is the only thing that kind of confuses me, because you're going to need a pass blocker when you're blocking for Russell Wilson and with the depleted offensive line. So that's a knock on him. But if you look at the other numbers among combine running backs, first in yards per carry, second in yards after contact per attempt, third in missed tackles forced per attempt, and was the most difficult running back to tackle on first contact, 58% of the time. So all per PFF. So that's Scott Barrett. I also want to talk about Graham Barfield, who I said is going to be coming up a lot, because there's no one better in the game at identifying rookie running backs for fantasy football than Graham Barfield. So I love using his information to pass it along to you guys. He has created this column of his that he's used for the last 3 years now called the Yards Created column, where he takes sample sizes. He'll look at like 5 games of running backs, and he will grade them out subjectively, and he'll look at every game, every rush, all these things, and he grades them based, outside of what their offensive line did for them. And it's revolutionary. And Penny graded very well, specifically in between the tackles. This is a quote from Graham Barfield. Penny was explosive in between the tackles, as his 5.9 yards created per attempt on inside carries is 5th best in yards created history, behind, listen to this list, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott, in that order. It's a pretty good list. Pretty good list. So, if he grades out well in Graham's charts and his theories or whatever, then there's a good chance that he's actually a really good running back. So what I'm saying is, the offensive line is definitely a problem in Seattle, but if Penny will get the volume, which I think he does, based on the draft capital, you have to think he's going to get 18 touches. 15 to 18 is probably reasonable per game. I think it makes him a top 20, top 22 running back right now in fantasy with upside. Looking at ADP data on MFL 10, I would take Rashad Penny over Derrick Henry. I would take, depending on where Darius Geis falls today, I still might take Geis over Penny. I think he's a better runner. Penny's in a situation, given that he was a first-round pick, to be a feature back. I would still take Jerick McKinnon over Penny. I would take Penny over Carlos Hyde, and I would take him over Kenyon Drake as well. So, Rashad Penny, don't shy away from the situation. He's a very good running back. Even though he's from a small school, you might not have heard a lot about him. Definitely someone to keep on your radar. Next up, and this is one I absolutely love. Sony Michel to the Patriots at pick 31. This was a shocker for a lot of Patriots fans. And I called this on my live stream. I said the Patriots want that first-round running back. Boy, there's too many reports and too many rumors now for it to be true. They worked out a lot of guys. And I would say it's a shocking pick because, quote-unquote, since selecting Lawrence Maroney in the first round 12 years ago, the Patriots had only taken 3 running backs inside of the top 150 overall picks prior to this year's NFL draft. And now Michel might have just become my second favorite fantasy running back this year for rookies, ahead of Penny, probably behind Barkley. And I think the reason that the Patriots took him in the first, I think if you take someone in the first, the Patriots know what they're doing, first of all, right? They get the 4-year contract for the rookie, and then the 5th-year team option. The reports prior to the draft were the bone-on-bone, knee bruise or whatever, that's going to make him fall. I will say he played in 39 of 40 of Georgia's last 40 games. So over the last 3 years, he played in 39 of 40 games. So say what you want about the knee, but he was playing in every single game, and he dominated in those games. They're going to run him into the ground 4 years. If by the 5th year they want to take that player option, they could do that. If not, they're not dumb enough to pick up second running back contracts. Use the rookie running back contracts, because that's the prime of their career, right? Those first 4 or 5 years. Run them into the ground if they want to, and then get rid of them. So they know what they're doing there. I'm not worried about that. He plugs immediately into the Dion Lewis role. It makes both Jeremy Hill, Mike Gillislee redundant. One or probably both of them are not going to make the team, or at least not going to be on the active roster. Maybe one of them will be on the practice squad. I think what will most likely happen will be a Michel, Goathead, James White running back by committee, spearheaded by a very large majority of the touches going to Sony Michel. I mean, there's no way New England goes with a running back in the first round, considering just how much they devalue the position, and not plan to use him crazily. And I think the reason they did it at 31 is because they have another pick at what was it, like 40 or something? But before they got to pick 40, there was, it was like Cleveland has 2 picks, Indianapolis has 2 picks, Denver has a pick, Tampa Bay has a pick. So there was like 8 picks before they got to their next pick. All those teams needed running backs. So there was a good chance that like 2 or 3 running backs go off the board early in the second round that we see tonight. One of the best parts about this pick, too, is the Patriots had another first-round pick, the 23rd overall pick, and they took I keep saying Michel like it's fucking the dude from Dodgeball. Sony Michel's teammate is offensive guard Isaiah Wynn, 23rd overall. So you gotta love this offense right now. And you look at Michel's measurables, 5'11", 215. So it's not huge, but we've seen plenty of guys, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara are this size, so the size is not a concern for me. He didn't test off the charts, but 4'5", 40 is fine for me. Pretty strong on the bench press. He didn't grade out like Nick Chubb, his teammate, but what he put on tape and what he did at Georgia was just as good, probably better than Nick Chubb. He averaged 7.9 yards per carry as a Bulldog and scored 16 touchdowns last year in 2017. That was against SEC defenses. Like, that is a legit 7.9 yards per carry is incredible. They have Burkhead and White. Michel doesn't actually even need to come off the field, like, ever. He's excellent in pass blocking, which is a huge check mark for the Patriots. He was the second highest graded pass blocker, I think, in yards created, Graham Barfield's thing, history, only behind Saquon Barkley. And in terms of catching the ball, he only caught 9 passes last year, which is kind of a red flag, but in the 2 years prior, he caught 48 combined, so he definitely has the receiving ability, no doubt. They just didn't use him that way last year. More importantly, he graded off the charts in Graham Barfield's yards created data, and I quote, "Every facet of Sony Michel's yards created data screams that he is a standout player. After Barkley, Sony Michel has the second best odds to become a featured player, both as a runner and a receiver in the 2018 class." And you might be asking, like, why do you keep quoting this and why is this like your Bible? The reason I do it is because Graham has the historical data to back it up. His favorite running backs in last year's class were Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara, based on his yards created data. So if you listened to him last year and you took those guys, and I didn't really start looking at his data until this year, and I'm going to be using it heavily. I didn't look at it until this year, but if you were the guys that went into the season like Kamara and Kareem Hunt are really good, and you got them late for like listening to Graham Barfield, it paid off. So I listen when Graham Barfield speaks, and y'all should do the same. Now, I think what's most surprising about this pick, to be honest with you, is the major flaw of Michel's game is ball security. He fumbled a lot in college, and Uncle Bill's not really open to the idea of his running backs losing the ball. So that's a problem he's going to need to fix. And, you know, I don't know. That's something I don't really look at as too much of an issue until the time comes. So I won't factor that into his outlook too much. I'm just saying, like, do not be scared away by Michel. If you've been burned by a Patriots running back, if you were like a Highland Gillisley and obviously it didn't work out and that's why you're staying away from Michel, or if you're too scared because this is going to be a running back by committee, do not be afraid of that. Michel is going to be, I think, an absolute steal. I think if he drops like the 4th round, you're looking at incredible value for him. I think he's going to see upwards of 250 touches, and in the Patriots offense, his touchdown ceiling is probably like 10 to 14. You know what I mean? So you're looking at a guy who's, I don't know, it's just in a great situation. A lot of people probably don't like this and are questioning the pick, but I think it's really a really good pick for the Patriots and Michel in terms of fantasy football. I had a lot of questions about Rex Goathead, Flex Burkhead, because he was one of my boys. And to be completely honest with you, I think he is still a perfectly fine PPR sleeper. I never expected them to go into the year with Burkhead as their RB1 or getting the majority of work on early downs. I expected that to go to, you know, someone, whether it was Gillisley or Hill or whether they drafted someone, which is what I expected. Burkhead's still going to be heavily involved. I think it's going to be Michel, Burkhead, getting a lot of passing work. James White is going to be slightly less involved. I think he's just been super ineffective over the last couple of years. He's had big plays and he knows the system well, but he's just not that good of a player overall. And I think Burkhead still is going to get 10 to 14 touches a game with plenty of scoring opportunities. So still a sleeper in PPR, and I still like Burkhead for those of you asking. And that moves us to our last skill position player. Let me make sure this thing is on. Yeah, we good. Cool. I don't even really have to edit any of this because I've just been talking and we're doing this thing live. I wrote this whole thing this morning, by the way, so do this for y'all. It's fucking 12:20 already. I gotta go listen to Post Malone's new album, man. I gotta shed some tears. I like to wake up and have a nice cry every now and then. Post Malone is the guy that can do that to me. Where were we? Oh, pick number 32, last pick in the NFL draft. Man, you had a feel for Lamar Jackson sitting there with the Masters jacket on. I'm like, oh, he's not going to get picked in the first day. I'm so happy he got picked. He goes to the Ravens with the 32nd overall pick. I absolutely love it. Kind of sucks for fantasy right now, redraft leagues. I would have liked to see him go somewhere where he's an immediate starter. I actually already wrote up tomorrow's Instagram post for my Stay Woke Saturday. Follow me on Instagram if you're not. He was going to be my sleeper pick, but I had it written up that he went to a starting position. That's not going to be the case. Joe Flacco is definitely still going to be the quarterback there for 2018. Joe Flacco is not guaranteed any money past this season. So there is a very big chance that they go with Lamar Jackson in 2019. If Jackson gets on the field in 2018, I absolutely love him as a fantasy player, but you can't take him knowing that he's not going to be the starter right away. I love the long-term view with Jackson. When you look at what the Ravens have there in terms of who is going to develop him, they have Marty Mornhinweg and they have Greg Roman. Mornhinweg and Roman were the OCs for Vic and for Colin Kaepernick in certain times of their career. Mornhinweg has a West Coast offense, and it's just going to be very, very fluid to developing Lamar Jackson and building an offense based around him rather than having to fit him into an offense that's there in Baltimore right now. So if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm pretty pumped for the future. I'm pretty pumped to see what Lamar Jackson will do next year. I'm not sure if we're going to get him in this year. If Joe Flacco, starts being really terrible like he's been over like second half or the last quarter of the year, maybe they'll put Lamar Jackson in there. But I don't see him winning the starting job outright. Definitely not. And in terms of Dynasty, he's a close third. I actually think he's probably my QB2 right now in Dynasty. So I'd probably take Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, tie between Rosen and Darnold, and then Allen. So that's going to wrap up the video. I appreciate you guys sticking around. If you did for thus long, please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Probably on Monday, I'll do the top 12, maybe 15, depending on how I'm feeling, overall rookies from the draft. And again, thank you for anyone who live streamed with me. We'll be doing that all season. Pre-order the draft guide now. Again, prices go up July 1st. You can follow on my social media. Everything is linked down below. So give the boy a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you back in the HQ later.